Welcome back to the special edition of Nebraska Nightly on election night. I'm Macy Newmeister.
And I'm Jill Lampkins.
Now we have an update on some of the races we've been covering so far.
With the incumbent Republican Governor Pete Ricketts' term being up, 3 candidates are running to be the 41st governor of Nebraska. Running is Republican ticket Jim Pillen, Democratic ticket Carol Blood, and Libertarian ticket Scott Zimmerman. We have initial results coming soon. We will show you very shortly.
Now let's take a look at District 1 with the incumbent Republican candidate Mike Flood and Democratic candidate Patty Pansing Brooks. Both candidates eager to secure the seat. The two have faced off before in the June 28th special election. This election took place to fill the seat once belonging to 9-term Republican Representative Jeff Fortenberry. Fortenberry was convicted of 3 felonies after lying to the FBI, opening up his seat, who was elected to Mike Flood during the special election. So far tonight, we're looking at Patty Pansing Brooks with 56.47% and Mike Flood with 43.53%, which is quite interesting to see after Flood won the early election.
And now here's a look at Congressional District 2 with the candidates Republican Representative Don Bacon and Democratic State Senator Tony Vargas. Right now, Tony Vargas has 57.33% of votes, with Don Bacon trailing with 42.67% of votes. Let's take a look back at our governor's race, if we can.
Remember, these are the results we have so far taken from the Nebraska Secretary of State website. Results are not final until the last vote is counted.
And here is that governor's race. Carol Blood holds 53.58% of the votes, Scott Zimmerman 3.03%, and Jim Pillen just behind Carol Blood with 43.38% of the votes.
Our own Rebecca Heckel attended the debate held at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln College of Journalism and
KLKN Channel 8 News and the College of Journalism and Mass Communications came together in early October to host a congressional debate between 1st District congressional candidates Patty Pansing Brooks and Mike Flood.
Debate is the bedrock of the democratic process, and we are proud to be hosting tonight's event live from Harold and Marion Anderson Hall at the UNL campus.
The 2 former state senators talked about everything from the economy.
We can't go around funding every single one of these bills. And right now, with Democrats solidly in control, the spending is excessive and it's reckless and it's dangerous.
2 women's reproductive rights.
The age of viability balanced against the health of the mother. That's what Roe stated. So that has been understood in our country as around 20 weeks. And if the life of the mother at 30 weeks is at risk, then decisions have to be made.
In the end, the 2 were able to agree on a few things, like working across the aisle and who won the 2020 presidential election.
I respect her. I respect the fact that she cares so deeply about this, that she's running for this, and I know she believes in all of her heart in the things that she says.
We have got to understand that we are not each other's enemies. We are each other's colleagues, family, friends, and neighbors.
The polls to choose either candidate will close at 8 p.m. on November 8th. Rebecca Heckel, Nebraska Nightly.
Thank you, Rebecca. Now let's take a look with Jenna Reynolds and Peyton Thomas at the social media desk, who have been reporting on what's been happening on social media tonight and what all the buzz is about. Jenna and Peyton. But it's just Peyton. How would I have known that?
1,200,000 registered voters in Nebraska. It's projected less than 750,000 are set to vote in this election. We take a look at the other reactions going on Twitter. Obviously, it's an issue that goes beyond party lines. It's better for our democracy when people go out to vote. Guys, back up to you in the studio.
Well, thank you, Peyton, very much. Now let's toss it over to Dr. Smith and Tanner Dykstra in the podcast room, who will be discussing more on political views happening across the state.
joining us this evening.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, now we do have our first batch of numbers here. So it looks like the Democratic candidates in most of the major races here are ahead. What do you make of that, considering that the polls have indicated that Republicans would be taking the races here?
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into early returns. Early returns tend to reflect early voters, and early voters tend to be more Democratic than Republican. And we're also probably getting more results from more urban areas as opposed to more rural areas, and more urban areas tend to lean Democratic too. So I wouldn't read too much into the early results, although obviously, I mean, if you're a Democrat, you have to be pleased with those early numbers.
Absolutely. And does that same sort of mentality go for the ballot initiatives that we're looking at here? It seems that the voter ID initiative is being overwhelmingly voted no on as of right now, and the minimum wage increase is being voted yes. Does that same mentality go for that, you think?
Yeah, I think that's true. Basically, I think what you're seeing in those early returns, the first set of returns that we get that are being rolled out, probably reflect more Democratic preferences than Republican preferences. And, let's wait till we've got, 70 to 80% of the votes in before we start really trying to project which way it's going to go.
Yeah. Let's zero in on one of these races here. Mike Flood versus Patty Pansing Brooks. Of course, what's unique about this is that we held a special election between these two candidates back in June that was obviously came out in favor of Mike Flood. Do you feel that it was really just a precursor of what we'll be seeing tonight?
That's a really interesting question. Patty Pansing Brooks did better in that special election than quite a few election watchers had projected. But special elections are kind of like their own, unique animal, and using them to project general elections can be a little bit of a dangerous business. And, I mean, I think it's objective to say that the odds are with Mike Flood simply because of the difference in party registration. But and I think you saw it in the clip from the debate that we were watching just a little while ago. I mean, these are two fairly well-matched candidates. They're reasonable, sober people, and they've both run well-organized, well-funded, and effective campaigns.
Sure. Yeah. And now looking at Don Bacon versus Tony Vargas. This one is interesting, I feel, because obviously in the 2020 presidential election, the second district electoral college vote went to Biden. Will that carry over into a Vargas win, or maybe Vargas overperforming expectations?
Yeah, that's hard to say, partially because midterm elections, you tend to see a drop in turnout, and the drop in turnout tends to be most pronounced amongst Democratic-leaning constituencies. So who knows? But that second congressional district, I mean, historically, at least for the past decade and a half, has been pretty competitive. And I think Vargas has to feel legitimately like he's in with a shot at winning that race. But, Bacon is an incumbent, has all the advantages of incumbency, and he too has run, an effective campaign. So I would expect that race to be tight. How tight, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
We will have to wait and see, of course. Thank you for joining us here tonight. We will, of course, be talking to you a little later in the evening when things may have changed up here. But thank you again, and back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Dr. Smith and Tanner. Stick with us, and we'll have more updates after the break.